Imagine this. You walk into a room full of your friends and family. They're all talking, laughing, sharing stories. But something strange happens. No one notices you. Not a single person turns to greet you or make space for you. It's as if you're invisible. You speak, but no one responds. You reach out, but no one feels your touch. Now ask yourself, what would change in their lives if you truly weren't there? What conversations would flow differently? What decisions would they make without your input? Who would they become in your absence? We spend our lives desperate to be seen, heard, and needed. We measure our worth by how much others want us around. But what if the greatest gift we could give others isn't our presence, but sometimes our absence? Carl Jung, one of history's greatest mind explorers, discovered something that might shake you to your core. Everything transforms when you're no longer available. Think about that for a moment. When you step back from a relationship, a workplace, or even a conversation, something magical and terrifying happens. People change. Situations evolve. New leaders emerge. Problems that seem to need your solving somehow find different solutions. This isn't about disappearing forever or cutting people off. It's about understanding a power you never knew you had, the power of your absence. We're taught to believe our greatest value lies in always being there, always saying yes, always being available at the first ring of a phone. But what if that's backward? What if our constant availability is actually holding back not just others, but ourselves? Right now, you might be feeling uncomfortable. The idea that things might improve when you step away challenges everything you've been taught about being a good friend, parent, child, or worker. But stay with me. This discomfort is the doorway to one of life's most freeing truths. What happens in the space you leave behind might be the key to understanding who you really are. Today, we're going to explore a powerful idea that might change how you see yourself in every relationship you have. This concept comes from the work of Carl Jung, who spent his life understanding the human mind and soul. But don't worry, we're going to break it down in a way that makes sense for everyday life. When we talk about not being available, we don't mean cutting people off or being rude. We're talking about something much deeper, the wisdom of knowing when to step back and create space. This idea might sound simple, but it has the power to transform your relationships, your work life, and even your understanding of yourself. By the end of our journey together, you'll understand why always being available might actually be hurting you and those around you. You'll learn how the right kind of absence can create growth that constant presence never could. And most importantly, you'll discover how to use this knowledge to build healthier connections with everyone in your life. This isn't just philosophy, it's practical wisdom that can make your life better starting today. So let's explore why everything transforms when you're no longer available, and how this hidden truth might be exactly what you need to hear right now. If this idea of creating healthy space in your relationships speaks to you, make sure to stay with me through this entire exploration. This might be the missing piece you've been looking for to solve problems that have followed you for years. Let's dive deeper together. We need to understand something important about human psychology. Deep in our minds, we all carry a basic fear, the fear of not being needed. From our earliest days as babies crying for attention, we learn that our survival depends on others caring about us and responding to our needs. This creates a powerful pattern that follows us into adulthood. We feel safe when we're important to others. Carl Jung understood this pattern better than most. He called it our persona, the mask we wear to make sure we fit into society and maintain relationships. Part of that persona often includes being constantly available, helpful, and needed. Think about the last time someone asked for your help. Did you feel a little spark of pleasure knowing they needed you? That's your ancient brain rewarding you for maintaining connections that, thousands of years ago, would have kept you alive in a dangerous world. But here's where things get complicated. The same instinct that once protected us can now trap us. Jung discovered something fascinating about human relationships. They often form unhealthy patterns he called complexes. A complex is like an emotional knot where two or more people get tangled in roles that seem helpful but actually hold everyone back. Take parents and children, for example. A mother might always help with her adult son's problems. His bills, his job applications, his relationship troubles. She feels good being needed. He feels supported. But beneath the surface, something troubling happens. The son never develops his own problem-solving muscles. The mother never discovers who she is beyond her helping role. Both remain stuck in patterns that prevent growth. This same dynamic plays out everywhere, between friends who always need rescuing, partners who can't function independently, or co-workers who dump their responsibilities on the reliable team member. These patterns feel normal because they've always been there, like fish who don't notice the water they swim in. Jung noticed that these patterns create what he called psychological dependencies. Just like with a drug, people can become addicted to having you available, and you can become addicted to being needed. It feels good in the moment, but slowly poisons growth and genuine connection. Think about someone in your life who always comes to you with their problems. Do they actually want solutions, or just the comfort of dumping their troubles on you? Have they grown or improved over time, or do they bring the same issues year after year? And the harder question, do you enable this cycle because it makes you feel valuable? This is why Jung's insight about availability is so powerful. He recognized that these dependencies can only be broken when one person disrupts the pattern. When you're no longer constantly available, not out of cruelty but out of wisdom, everything has the chance to transform. Your absence creates a vacuum, and nature hates vacuums. In that empty space, new growth becomes possible. The friend who always needed advice might finally trust their own judgment. The child who depended on you might discover their own strength. The relationship built on need might evolve into one built on genuine wanting. Consider the bonsai tree. When carefully pruned, when parts are deliberately made absent, it grows more beautiful and stronger than if left to grow wildly. Your relationships work the same way. Strategic unavailability is the pruning that allows healthy growth. But this isn't easy. Our culture teaches us that availability equals love. Always be there for your kids. Never leave your friends hanging. Be the employee who answers emails at midnight. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, proof that we're good people because we're always there. Jung would say, this misunderstands true connection. Real love isn't about constant presence, but about fostering growth and independence. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and trust others to find their own way. This idea appears throughout human wisdom. In Eastern philosophy, there's the concept of Wu Wei, the art of non-doing. It recognizes that sometimes the most powerful action is no action at all. Indigenous cultures practice vision quests, where individuals must face challenges alone, without the tribe's help. Even in modern psychology, therapists know they must maintain boundaries to truly help their clients grow. Think of the teacher who doesn't answer the question immediately but waits, creating space for students to think, or the parent who watches their child struggle with a difficult task without rushing to help. These moments of absence aren't abandonment. They're acts of profound respect for the other person's capacity. But there's something even deeper happening when you practice healthy unavailability. You're not just changing others, you're discovering yourself. Jung believed we all wear many masks depending on who we're with. With friends, we might be the funny one. At work, the reliable one. With family, the peacekeeper. These roles give us comfort and purpose, but they can also hide our true self. Only in solitude, in your own absence from others, can you begin to hear your own voice beneath the noise of expectations. Jung wrote that your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. This journey inward reveals uncomfortable truths. Maybe you've been over-functioning in relationships to avoid your own pain. Perhaps your constant availability to others has been a way to avoid the scarier task of figuring out who you really are and what you really want. Or maybe your need to be needed has become so central to your identity that you don't know who you'd be without it. These revelations can be frightening. They might explain why we resist creating boundaries, why we keep our phones always on, why we say yes when we desperately want to say no. Being unavailable isn't just about giving others space to grow, it's about giving yourself space to become. But there's a dangerous misunderstanding we need to clear up. Being unavailable doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It doesn't mean abandoning responsibilities or cutting off relationships. That would be simply switching one unhealthy pattern for another. True wisdom lies in the balance. Being present with full attention when you choose to be available, and being completely unashamed of your boundaries when you choose not to be. It's about quality over quantity, depth over constant, shallow connection. Think about it this way. Would you rather have a friend who responds to your texts within seconds but is always distracted when you're together, or one who might take hours to reply but gives you their complete presence when you meet? We instinctively know which connection holds more value, yet we pressure ourselves to be the first kind of friend. Jung observed that modern society creates particular challenges for maintaining healthy boundaries. He lived in a simpler time before smartphones and social media created the expectation of 24/7 availability. Today, our devices ping constantly with notifications, each one a small claim on our attention and energy. The world is designed to make us constantly available, to friends, to work, to news, to endless streams of information. Fighting against this current takes real courage. You might worry, if I don't respond immediately, will people think I don't care? If I'm not always available, will I miss opportunities? If I create boundaries, will people leave me? These fears have ancient roots in our need for tribe and connection. But Jung would argue the opposite is true. When you're indiscriminately available to everything and everyone, you're not truly valuable to anything or anyone, including yourself. Your energy gets scattered, your presence becomes diluted, your impact weakens. To be powerful in your life, you must reclaim the right to be unavailable. Consider how rare and precious undivided attention has become in our world. When you choose to be fully present with someone, with no phone in sight, no wandering attention, no clock watching, you're giving them something more valuable than constant partial availability. You're giving them the gift of being truly seen and heard. And when you choose to be unavailable to protect your time, your energy, your peace of mind, you're not being selfish, you're refilling the well so you have something genuine to offer when you do show up. You're modeling healthy boundaries that give others permission to do the same. You're creating the necessary space for growth. This understanding transforms how we see relationships. They're no longer about constant access and response, but about rhythm coming together and moving apart, like the natural breath of life itself. Every healthy relationship needs both connection and space, presence and absence, togetherness and separateness. When you understand this rhythm, you stop seeing boundaries as walls and start seeing them as doorways, sacred thresholds that don't keep people out, but invite them into a more authentic connection. You realize that saying no to constant availability means saying yes to something deeper. But knowing this truth intellectually isn't enough. The real work begins when you start practicing strategic unavailability in your everyday life. This isn't about grand gestures, but small, consistent choices that gradually shift the energy in your relationships. It might look like turning your phone off during dinner, or taking longer to respond to non-urgent messages. It might mean declining invitations that drain rather than fill you, or setting office hours if you're the person everyone comes to with problems. For parents, it might mean letting your children figure some things out on their own instead of always rushing to help. As you begin this practice, watch carefully what happens. Some people will resist. They've grown comfortable with your constant availability and may push back when the pattern changes. This resistance is actually valuable information. It shows you where dependencies have formed. But if you hold steady with compassion and clarity, something remarkable happens. The initial discomfort gives way to new growth. People who always leaned on you begin standing on their own feet. Conversations become more meaningful when they're not constant. Your presence becomes more valued precisely because it's not taken for granted. And most surprisingly, you'll discover parts of yourself that were hiding beneath your helping roles, interests you never had time to explore, thoughts you never gave space to develop, needs you never acknowledged because you were too busy meeting everyone else's. This is the transformation Jung was pointing to, not just a change in how others relate to you, but a fundamental shift in how you understand yourself. When you're no longer defined by constant availability, you're free to discover who you really are. The journey isn't always easy. Our need to be needed runs deep, and breaking that pattern can trigger profound insecurity. Who am I if not the always available friend, parent, partner, or worker? What is my value if not in constant service to others? This is where Jung's deeper teachings become so important. He believed each of us has a self with a capital S that goes beyond all our roles and masks. This authentic self doesn't need constant external validation. It finds worth not in endless doing, but in simply being. Connecting with this deeper identity is the real work of a human life. When you touch this authentic self, even briefly, something shifts. Your worth no longer depends on constant availability. You no longer fear that creating boundaries means losing love. You understand that true connection doesn't require constant contact, just like music needs both notes and silence to create beauty. This wisdom appears in different forms across cultures. In Japanese aesthetics, there's the concept of ma, the powerful empty space between objects. In music, the pauses between notes are as important as the notes themselves. Even in conversation, the spaces between words give meaning to what's said. Your unavailability is this kind of space, not emptiness, but pregnant possibility. As you practice this wisdom, you'll notice subtle but powerful changes. You'll become more discerning about where you put your energy. You'll start valuing quality of connection over quantity of interaction. You might have fewer but deeper friendships. You might accomplish less, but with greater impact. You might speak less, but with words that truly matter. And something else happens too. A kind of paradox emerges. When you stop being indiscriminately available, the connections you do choose become more authentic. When you no longer need constant validation from others, you become more genuinely valuable to them. When you respect your own boundaries, others naturally treat you with greater respect. Think of someone you know who doesn't give their time and attention easily. When they do choose to focus on you, doesn't it feel particularly meaningful? That's the power you begin to hold when you practice wise unavailability. Your presence becomes a gift rather than an expectation. The most profound example of this transformation often comes at life's end. Those who work with the dying report that people rarely wish they'd been more available to the office, to social obligations, or even to others' expectations. Instead, they wish they'd been more available to their own authentic desires and deepest values. They wish they'd had the courage to live for themselves, not just for others. Jung understood this. He knew that constantly sacrificing your own needs for others doesn't make you a better person. It makes you a less authentic one. True generosity comes not from self-depletion, but from self-fullness. You can't truly be there for others if you've never learned to be there for yourself. This is perhaps the ultimate transformation that comes when you're no longer constantly available. You discover that the greatest gift you can give others is not your exhausted service, but your authentic self. Not your constant presence, but your purposeful engagement. Not your unlimited availability, but your wholehearted attention when you do choose to be present. And now we arrive at the deepest truth of all. The reason everything transforms when you're no longer available isn't just about creating space for others to grow or even discovering yourself beyond your roles. It's about touching something fundamental about the nature of life itself. Throughout history, philosophers and spiritual teachers have recognized a paradox. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to stop trying so hard to solve it. Sometimes the best way to find something is to stop looking so desperately. Sometimes the best way to reach a goal is to let go of your attachment to reaching it. This wisdom appears in Taoism as Wu Wei, non-doing, in Christianity as surrender, in Buddhism as non-attachment. Different words pointing to the same truth. Forcing things often creates resistance, while creating space allows natural processes to unfold. When you practice being strategically unavailable, you're applying this ancient wisdom to your relationships and your life. You're trusting that some things need space to resolve themselves. You're acknowledging that constant intervention often prevents natural growth. You're recognizing that some forms of help actually hurt. This truth can be hard to accept because it challenges our need for control. We want to believe that through enough effort, enough availability, enough doing, we can make everything work out. But life is more mysterious than that. Some things must be allowed rather than achieved. Think of trying to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more elusive sleep becomes. Only when you let go of trying, when you make yourself unavailable to the effort, does sleep naturally arise. Many of life's most important processes work this way. Creativity, healing, growth, and genuine connection all require periods of non-doing, of strategic unavailability. Jung called this active waiting, not passive resignation, but a state of alert receptivity. You're not abandoning your care or responsibility. You're engaging with life in a different, often more powerful way. You're creating the conditions for natural transformation rather than forcing change through constant effort. This perspective transforms how you approach challenges. When a relationship feels stuck, your first instinct might be to talk more, do more, be more available. But what if the wiser choice is to step back and allow space for new patterns to emerge? When a problem seems unsolvable, maybe the solution isn't more effortful thinking, but creating mental space through walks in nature or meditation. The great paradox is that your power to affect positive change often increases when you stop trying so hard to be the source of that change. By making yourself strategically unavailable, you create space for life's natural intelligence to work in ways your controlling efforts never could. This isn't about becoming passive or disengaged. It's about working with life, rather than against it. It's about recognizing when effort is needed and when space is needed. It's about having the wisdom to know the difference. As you practice this balance in your daily life, being fully present when you choose to engage and completely unashamed of your boundaries, when you choose not to, you'll discover a new kind of freedom. You're no longer driven by the desperate need to be needed or the fear of missing out. You're no longer defined by your availability to others' demands and expectations. Instead, you become the author of your own attention, choosing consciously where to place your precious energy rather than scattering it to every person or situation that calls for it. This conscious choice is the beginning of an authentic life. And here's the final revelation. When you live this way, your impact actually increases, like a river that gains power by flowing through a narrow channel rather than spreading thin across a plain. Your focused presence becomes more transformative, exactly because it's not constant. Your words carry more weight precisely because they're not endless. Your love becomes more powerful because it comes from choice rather than obligation. The truth Jung discovered is both simple and revolutionary. Everything transforms when you're no longer available, including yourself. Your relationships evolve beyond dependency into genuine connection. Your contributions become more impactful. Your presence becomes more valued. And most importantly, you discover the person you were always meant to be beneath the roles you've played for others. This journey isn't about selfishness, but about authenticity. It's not about disconnection, but about healthier connection. It's not about doing less, but about being more present when you choose to engage, more intentional with your energy, more aligned with your deepest values. So I invite you to experiment with this wisdom in your own life. Notice where you might be over-available. Pay attention to the dependencies that have formed in your relationships. Practice creating healthy space, not out of rejection, but out of respect for natural growth. Watch what happens when you're no longer constantly available to solve every problem, answer every call, meet every need. Notice how others might initially resist, but eventually grow stronger in your absence. And most importantly, discover who you are in the quiet spaces when you're not performing your usual roles. This is the transformation Jung pointed to, not a technique for manipulation, but a pathway to liberation, not a rejection of connection, but an invitation to something deeper, not an escape from responsibility, but a return to what truly matters. Everything transforms when you're no longer available, including the life you thought you were supposed to live and the one that's been waiting for you all along. If these ideas resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on where in your life you might need more boundaries and where you might need more genuine presence. The wisdom isn't in choosing one over the other, but in finding the right balance for each relationship and situation. Remember that this journey takes time and practice. Be patient with yourself and others as you learn this new way of being. Small, consistent steps toward healthy unavailability will create more lasting change than dramatic gestures. And know that you're not alone in this journey. Throughout human history, wise teachers have recognized this same truth, that sometimes the greatest gift we can give is our absence, and that true connection requires both togetherness and space.